Okay, Oleg, let's take a look at this new set of essays you've done. Let's see, the first one is about the awful restaurant. Dear Sir, Madam, I am writing to complain about the quality of one dish that I ate in your restaurant my big Greek family ate last week. First of all, I would like to mention that I have been a loyal client of your restaurant for the last 10 years. That is the reason I decided to celebrate Easter at your establishment. I ordered a traditional Greek Easter cake, tsureki, and you can imagine how unhappy I was to discover a piece of walnut shell in it. As a consequence, one of my teeth was damaged with the shell, and I had to visit my dentist immediately. This is not something that anyone expects from the best restaurant in our city. To resolve this problem, I would appreciate if you could give me a full refund of the cost of I would appreciate if you could give me a full refund of the dish and compensate the cost of the dentist's services. I kindly ask you to investigate the situation and inform me about the reasons for the incident. In case your restaurant fails to compensate expenditures for the dentist, I will have no other choice than to file a complaint to the City Council Department. I look forward to your reply and resolution to my problem. Yours faithfully. Okay, it's actually pretty good. I did like it. I don't really have any major complaints, no concerns. It was a well-executed letter, believable. Yeah, it was absolutely fine. Yeah, it's corrected. I mean, you've done everything exactly what you're supposed to do. So extended, formal, polite, no problems whatsoever. So let's move on. Okay, marriage and birth in your 30s. Let's see what you said here. One of the most fundamental tasks in people's life is to start a family and become a parent. Nowadays, there is a widely held belief that the most appropriate time for this step is when a person is in their 30s. You don't need to put an apostrophe here. I completely agree with the aforementioned viewpoint due to examples from Harvard University, get rid of the, and the United Nations, S, which demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, fine. There is ample evidence that a marriage, not a marriage in 30 years, that's like 30 years from now, so that doesn't make sense. There is ample evidence that a marriage at 30 is, that doesn't make sense, is more beneficial in comparison with marriage in early age. I don't know. This is really awkward, Oleg. Let's rephrase it, okay? So there is ample evidence that getting married at 30 is more beneficial than getting married younger. Okay, that's all. The central reason behind this is that people after 30 have succeeded in their career and evolved as individuals. No one can deny that a start of a career demands significant efforts, and due to this fact, there's a lack of time for long-term relationships. For example, recent empirical research by Harvard University, NOVA, demonstrates that modern society tries, IES, to avoid marriages, for 30 and instead concentrate on work. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that after 30, individuals have more time and can approach the issue of creating a family more meaningfully. All right, fine. Additionally, it must not be forgotten that closer to their 30s, again, you don't need this apostrophe, people tend to perceive the institution of marriage and parental responsibility more seriously. This is largely because people become more mature, conscious, and these qualities help them to build more stable families. For instance, an extensive study by the United Nations, plural, showed that the quantity of divorces among couples who got married after 30 are lower in comparison with those who got married before this age. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that a later marriage is rather advantageous for the state and individuals. In conclusion, from the examples and arguments given, I believe that people are free to decide when to get married. However, I deem that couples married after 30 have more chances to create a stronger and more stable family. All right, so here's the good news. It's really well written. The grammar, the vocabulary, all that is very well controlled. There are few errors. All right, so not really many. Just like sometimes with those apostrophes after 30s, this is common. It's a mistake that even native speakers make. So well done. My one concern is that I felt like you developed the idea of parenthood after 30 very superficially. So you talked about marriage here, marriage, and then marriage again, and then here marriage, and then you just threw in the word parental responsibility. Again, divorce. So there's actually very, very little about having children in your 30s. Like I said, I thought you dealt with it just really superficially. It's as if you wrote this whole thing focused on marriage, and then afterwards you were like, oops, I forgot to write something about parenthood. That's kind of how I felt about this, okay? So you needed to deal with parenthood specifically, okay, rather than as an afterthought. And that's really what I felt about this essay. You just didn't deal with parenthood itself specifically. And it's interesting because I think that there is a wealth of things that you could say about parenthood in one's 30s, about what the benefits of it are, as well as the negatives, because believe me, there are some. So I thought that this deserved more attention. What else did I want to tell you? Is it a positive or negative development in your opinion? Okay, and to what extent do you support this? Okay. I think this is one of those really interesting ones. I always find these very confusing when they have two questions like this. Is it a positive or negative development, and to what extent do you support it? It is, in fact, possible to say that it is a negative development, but in the end that you support it, as strange as that may sound. What could you have said about childbirth? I told you that you could have talked about some negatives. One of them is that clearly fertility rates go down as people get older. And so, you know, as people age, they have a harder time getting pregnant. And also the rates for certain birth defects increase as the age of the mother increases. Okay, so that's something you could have said about why this could potentially be negative. What else could you have said? You could have said that as people get older and they, you know, get above 30, that essentially the pool of available mates actually decreases. And so, you know, they may end up getting married just because it feels like there aren't many people left out there. I mean, there are tons of things you could have said about why this potentially could be negative. But even if you decided not to do that, I still think that there was a lot you should have said about childbirth. For example, what could be a positive about having a child after 30? Well, first of all, you're more mature. You've lived your life. You've lived your wild 20s, and so you're more stable and ready to settle down, and you can, you know, devote your life and yourself to a child. Okay? Also, the stuff that you said about being more financially secure here, you said something about your career. You could have said that, you know, they have arrived at a certain point in their career. They don't need to prove themselves as they might have needed to in their 20s. And so they also have the financial stability to raise a child, okay? So there was a lot of stuff that you could have said here that you didn't, and I thought you should have. Either one way or the other, like either talking about the negatives or talking about the positives of this trend, okay? So some things to think about. Go ahead and correct these, return them back corrected, and let's see the next set, okay? I'm looking forward to them. Good luck.